Hi everyone, welcome to Architecture Photography Tutorials. I am Adam Goldberg, and today I am going to be sharing with you a full edit starting in Lightroom, going all the way to and through Photoshop of a luxury hotel bathroom. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so here we are in Lightroom, and you can see I have 11 images, all sorts of different exposures. We have a really bright one, we have dark, and then we have a number of flash frames as well. So trying to shape light in different directions. So I'm going to go ahead and start with this one. I have some presets. These are available to you on the site. So if you want to go ahead and download them, head to the Architecture Photography Tutorials downloads page, and you will have these presets available to you. We can just do interior, and you can see that adds a little bit of contrast, takes the highlights down, shadows, whites, blacks, texture, clarity, and I'm just going to go ahead and do that for all of these. So the easiest way to do that is once you have one, shift click all of it down here and then sync, and you can see I have just about everything set. You can check or uncheck none and then click synchronize, and then that applies that to every single one. So let's just go ahead and look through these, because you can always make some final adjustments. I'm going to bring the highlights down on this one all the way down to 100%. This one might even drop the exposure just a little bit. So I really like what that's doing. On these robes, let's see, we just kind of have a regular medium exposure, another flash one. Again, I'm going to bring my highlights all the way down on this, because look how really nice that looks up there. And this one's definitely a little bit bright. The reason I shot it this way was probably to get a little bit of extra light back in here. We can see kind of how that goes. So for this one, just because I know where that's going, bring up the shadows maybe a little bit. Here I am hiding in the corner. I'm actually going to bring the highlights so you can see it was kind of making it a little bit muddy there. So I'm going to bring that to -50 on the highlights. So, because I really like what that's doing down here and on there. Here's another one with some different angles. I'm going to take the highlights back to regular. So this is again for kind of back here, so that way I can kind of see what I was trying to do. Maybe bring the highlights down just a little bit. So I'm just trying to find a nice mixture. So here's another one, me standing there and just getting a little bit of light over here, and then a super bright one for everything back there, and just highlights down. So that's really it. Pretty simple in Lightroom. So to export these, I'm just going to right click all of them with the shift button, edit in, and then open as layers in Photoshop. So let's do that, and let's head to Photoshop. Okay, so we are here in Photoshop, where this is where we're going to do most of our work. As you saw, pretty quick in Lightroom, just a couple quick adjustments before bringing those photos into Photoshop, which again is where the majority of the work is going to happen. So I have all of my layers. I can label them here in a minute, but the first thing I always do is shift click to highlight all of them, and then I'm going to go to edit, auto align layers, and auto. This is just in case the camera moved just a little bit. I always like doing this as the first thing when I bring my images into Photoshop, to make sure that as I'm working through my layers, everything is lined up exactly the way I want. And I know that this client is going to want things pretty moody. So as I'm going through these, I'm going to start with probably one of my darker ambient frames. And so we can just bring those down to the bottom, and we can relabel them just by clicking on it, ambient 1, and then I'll relabel this one ambient 2. I'll probably start with ambient 1. If we need to move things around, we can. So I also like to work from back to front in all of my images when I'm adding in flash. So let's see here, we kind of, these two are kind of some of our back flash images. So we can go ahead and start with this one. This is for the stool. And all I'm going to do is come down here, add a new layer mask, Command I to paint it, to turn it black, excuse me. I want to make sure my brush over here is set to white. I can press B to make sure I brush. Flow, 50%. Opacity for this one, I definitely want to bring down maybe to 25% because I want to really brush all of this in softly. And over here, I'm going to change my blending layer mode from normal to lighten. So again, your blend mode over here to lighten. And the nice thing is that then this is just going to paint in very subtly everything that I want. And one thing to always double check too is what your hardness is. I'm at 17%. I think that's pretty good for this. And again, just kind of painting in, and again, I'm just lightening the image. So if I do stuff over here, it's not any brighter, so it's not going to make any changes to the image. So that's the nice thing about here working in lighten mode. And then you can click X to change between your black and your white here. If I don't like that, I can kind of bring that. And if I think that maybe this is a little bit too bright, again, I could take my opacity down even further. And again, I have it on black, so that means that I'm erasing what I'm doing. And so then, I mean, you can make this really subtle. So something like that. Because again, I want this to be pretty moody, so I'm probably not going to do a whole lot over here. Obviously, I need to do a little bit over here with the toilet, but let's see what else we got. So we have this one. So this is kind of for the back of the shower here. So again, you can, instead of clicking the new layer mask and then going Command I, if we back that out, is while you're clicking the new layer mask, if you press the Option key, it automatically gives you that black mask. So then if your brush is set to white, you can just start painting in. And all I'm doing is just very subtly clicking in. And one thing I did not do was change my blend mode. Again, it's at normal. I want to change it to lighten. That way I don't have to worry about hitting things that I don't want. And you can see the color up here is a little bit funky. That's okay, we'll deal with that in a little bit. We have our other ambient. Let's see what that does for us. I do like what it's doing over here on the floor, and then maybe on the ceiling over here. So let's take this into lighten mode, and we're going to click Option, new layer mask, and I'm going to change this one to 100% because again, I liked what it was kind of doing up there in the shower, just to give us a little bit of that. And again, you can be as precise as you need to. If you need to create some work with the, and this might be a little bit too bright even, but we'll see. That's pretty bright up there. So I might press 5 to change my opacity to 50%. Now I'm going to paint with black and just kind of come over this because that was just getting a little bit too bright for me. I think that looks pretty good. So again, I've kind of kept this wall dark. Let's see what's going on the floor here. So again, I'm just tapping at 50%. I might even go down to 25% on my opacity. I just did 2.5. Alternatively, you can come up here and use the slider. And I'm just gonna give this wall maybe just like a little bit more light. All right, so it's coming along. We still kind of have this wall that we need to worry about. So I'm at 25% again. I might just add a little bit more up here, just so this wall's not so dark. And again, I'm just tapping, I'm just avoiding the robes for now. All right, let's see what else we got. We have this one. This one's really, really bright. I'm not sure if I'm going to end up using this one. Again, this was to make sure I had lots of good information back here. It also killed that ambient from up there because I do think that that's a little bit bright, but let's see. You want to know what we're gonna do? Before we do that, just because this one's so bright, let's move this one kind of up towards the top. I might work on that one last. All right, so now this is more of kind of the color that I like. All I'm doing is bouncing into the ceiling. I have my exposure, excuse me, my shutter speed pretty fast, probably 1/25th of a second or even 1/250th of a second. So I'm just killing all of the ambient lights. I have the lights off, so that way this gives me full control. So let's see. Yeah, and I didn't really like how the other ones were coloring in over there. So again, let's just create a new layer mask. I'm gonna keep this one on normal. And again, at 25%, I'm just gonna kind of tap a little bit. And I'm also gonna come up here because I wanna get rid of this light too, as much as I can, because we'll bring that back in later. So I'm gonna go to 100%, and I'm just gonna bring it all out. So again, that's okay that that's pretty dark. Up here, you can see kind of have a little bit of overlap, and that's okay. So we'll just go to our pen tool. We're gonna zoom in really tight. So again, P for pen, right there. And this is where being precise does matter, because you want all of your edges to be really nice. Feather radius 1, that's pretty much what I do just to give me a little bit. I'm gonna take my brush back at 100%. I'm gonna paint black, and that's now gone. But you can see we kind of have a little bit of overlap here, so let's need to blend it all in. You can adjust your opacity, but that looks pretty good. I'm okay with a little bit of that up there. If I wanted to go back, the nice thing is my path exists already, so I can go work path. I can rename that path 1. And I can go select. Oh, whoops, hold on, let's go back here. Let's make the selection. Okay, then I can go up here, and then I can go select the inverse. And so now it's everything but that. So that way, if I want now to clean up that edge on the inside, same thing, I can go ahead and do that right there. I had a big brush, so it moved over here. But again, I can come in and just blend it all right back the way it was. So you don't have to always create a new mask. You can just use that select inverse and fix all of your stuff. So you can see lines, so this way I always got to double check everything, make sure everything blends in smooth. And that's why it's good to zoom in, zoom out, all of that. I do have a little bit of work here on the ceiling to do, because I think it was a little bit too dark. So we'll just go 50% and maybe just kind of tap in here just a little bit, just to give this ceiling, again, maybe just a little bit more color. So, and I'm just to zoom in and out, I'm just pressing Command plus, Command minus. So again, you can just kind of zoom around. But again, don't want to do that. Let's see here, X. So I think that's looking pretty good. It is a little bit dark back there. You can't really see that, so we'll have to work on that. Let's see what else we got here. All right. So here's another one, not quite as bright as that one. Again, this is giving us, I think, some good color back here. And so again, option, new layer mask, and just one little tap at 50%. And you can see what that did before, after. And then I'm gonna go down to 25%. So I'm just gonna kind of blend this in, just give me a little bit on the ceiling. I don't like that. So a lot of this is just trial and error, finding what works, but it's a lot of just subtle taps with the mouse. So I think this is starting to come along pretty well. Let's see what we have next. All right, so now we have our robes. I have a couple different shots with the robes, so let's see which one. I like the angle of this one compared to the other ones. So this is kind of more, I'm closer to the camera. This one, closer to the camera, more straight on. This one, I'm almost straight on to the robes, and I really like the look of that. So option, new layer, make sure my brush is set to white because I have the black background, so I'm adding. Opacity 25%. I'm just gonna go lighten mode, and I'm just gonna very subtly start painting in the robe. And so one thing that you'll notice is that our color is a little bit different with this one, and I don't want that. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete this layer mask. I'm gonna uncheck that layer. I'm gonna come down here, and I'm gonna click Shift Command Option E. And that's gonna create me a new layer. And I'm just gonna slide this up to the top. And I'm gonna change my blend mode to color. And so what that's gonna do is match the color of the image a lot more closely than it was before. And I want to be really, I want this to kind of look like light is coming from the top down. So I want to be pretty subtle with it, and I want it to really spotlight the robes. So kind of in between here. I don't need kind of some of the stuff over here, here. I think maybe they need just a little bit more. So maybe if we go another 10% there, painting white again because we have the black background, just kind of really subtly kind of adding in robes. And maybe just give that, I'm not sure I like that, so let's just kind of start to fade that out too. And if we zoom in, you can kind of see some of the edges here that I don't love. So again, just trying to really blend this in, changing my opacity just to get this where I want it to be. So that way we're really just kind of highlighting the robe. So if we zoom out, let's see, I want to get rid of a little bit more here. So before, after, and then I think this, you can see it's kind of, there's a little bit of a glow there. That's maybe a little bit too much for me. So I'm just gonna kind of, again, just light brush strokes. You can always change your flow too, change your opacity. And let's just see, if we turn the color off, you can see the color before, color after. I'll zoom in. Before, after. So it's subtle, but I think this color matches the mood of the room a little bit better. So again, just as if there's kind of like a little spotlight on those, which is really nice. So I like how this is coming along. A little bit more work to do. Let's see what else we have. That's pretty bright. And again, if we take the color off, you can just see the color difference there. So this is just our kind of bright ambient layer. It's not really doing much for me. This one's not doing much for me. I am going to come back down here to this ambient one, and I'm going to duplicate that. So Command J, and then I'm going to drag it up to the top. And then all I'm going to do is change this to lighten mode. And so that's going to bring in now that light. So you can see before we had, it was a little bit brighter, and then we got rid of it by using our flash frames, and so now we're able to control the light as it comes in. And so it is a lot more subtle. You have all of the detail still of the marble, which is great. A couple color issues still. There's a little bit of color issue here. There's some color issues here. But I think overall this is in pretty good shape. So to fix some of this color, I am going to create a new layer. I'm going to change it to color. I'm going to take my brush, so I press B, and I'm just going to click somewhere over here and really subtle, just gonna kind of paint in this yellowy color, and I'm gonna see what happens if I come on the robes. So robes were a little bit too cool for me. I think that's pretty good. I think that helps match it a little bit better. So now all of my colors are a little bit better. One thing I don't like though is the toilet maybe is a little bit too yellow. This client definitely likes things a little bit moodier, a little bit more yellow, earthy tones, but we can fix that. We'll create a new hue saturation layer. So come down here, hue saturation, and this is that new hue saturation tool, which is great. I'm just gonna come over here and select, and it's gonna pick the yellow, so it's definitely more accurate. It's not just picking a yellow, it's picking the yellow that you're actually clicking on, which is great. We're just gonna bring the saturation down maybe like 40. And that brought the saturation down on everything, which I don't want, so I'm going to click Command I, and then I'm just going to come in with my brush at 100% and just paint white with my brush since we have a black mask. I'm not taking all of the yellow away from those, but I just thought those were a little bit too yellow, and maybe same here with the toilet. It's probably a white cream color in reality, so there's definitely images, spaces where you want to take out a lot of the color cast in yellow maybe, but this is not one of those images or clients. So that's that. And to see exactly what you painted, if you press the backslash key, it'll do the before and after, so you can kind of see yellow, cream color, same there. So I think this is pretty good. I like how this is coming along. I still think there's some little bit of color work that can happen in here. All right, let's go ahead and do that now. So let's create a new solid color layer. And this was the color that I had grabbed from before. So just gonna click OK. And then I'm just gonna put this opacity at, so that's at 0. And as I bring it up, it's just adding a little bit of color. And I'm going to flip this. And then this way, now again, I can paint it in white with my brush. And this is probably a little bit too high of a percentage, 15%. Let's bring that down. So there's many different ways that you can adjust the color of your image. Again, we're using now that solid color layer. We've used the hue saturation layer to adjust colors. We also just did a blank layer with the color. So just changing kind of some of the colors, that way it all matches and looks smooth. Overall, I think this looks pretty good. A couple things I don't like is this shadow up here. Let's see if we zoom around if there's anything else. I'm okay with kind of these tags here. I like the on off there. I really like what's going on down there. I don't love all of this reflection here, so maybe we can do a little bit of work on that as well. But let's start up here with this shadow. We're just gonna take our lasso, so I'm just gonna press L for lasso. I'm gonna let Photoshop work its magic here and just select that and use my Gen Fill. I don't click anything, I keep it blank. The reason for that is I feel like the more information that you put in there, Photoshop just absolutely goes crazy. So hopefully just by leaving it blank, it'll just know that I want to remove it. Let's see what that does. All right, so here's what Photoshop did. It gives you 3 options, which is great. I think the second one is probably the best, but again, it's good to look at your image zoomed out, zoomed in, and again, I'm just pressing Command plus and minus. I think that looks pretty natural, so before, after. Okay with a little shadow, I just thought that other one was a little bit too distracting. All right, so now we are over here. All of these reflections, let's just create a new layer, blank, and let's zoom in real tight on that. And I'm just gonna take my brush, and I'm gonna use Option to pick the color. And then I'm gonna take my pen tool, and I'm just gonna come around this. I'm okay with some of them. I just think it's a little bit too much. So then I just again made my selection, and then I'm just going to paint over this. And then the key when you just paint in like this is go filter, noise, add noise, because otherwise we just filled it with like a fully blank thing. We can zoom out. And I think that looks pretty good. Again, before, after. So if you zoom in really close, you can kind of see that maybe this is a little bit darker than kind of the rest of this. That's okay, because when you zoom out, you can't really tell. I mean, alternatively, you could leave a little bit of the reflection in by adjusting your opacity, so maybe we'll just do that and leave it at like 92%. So before, after. So there's just like subtle changes that you can make. And if you think that that's a little bit too dark still compared to that, you can go ahead and do it all over again. Or one of my favorite things, create a new adjustment layer, curves, clip it to the layer by clicking the option key. You'll see you get the little box with the down arrow. So that means it's only applying to this layer. And then I'm going to go up to my presets and lighter, and then that's just going to apply to that layer. And so that's just brightening it up just the tiniest bit. So I might even go 95 now. And again, before, after. There's no way anyone would know that we kind of got rid of most of that reflection. So overall, I think this image is looking really good. It's got the color that I want for the client. I'm highlighting kind of the shower area here, the robes. Hopefully your eye kind of just goes through the image and ends up back here at this amazing rainfall shower. We've tamed this really bright light, and I think overall this looks pretty good. So I'm ready to finish this one up. So if I want to add a little bit of pop to it, I can again create a new curves adjustment layer. So layer, curves, and preset. This time I'm going to use linear contrast, and that just again adds a little bit of contrast and pop. So I think this does a really nice job of again highlighting the areas of the image that I want highlighted. But again, if you look through, there's still plenty of detail for your eye to follow. And then the last thing that I'm going to do is Shift Command Option E. This is the last thing I do in all my images. And then I'm going to do Command J, because I'm going to duplicate that layer. I'm going to come up here to Filter. I'm going to go to Other, and I'm going to go to High Pass. And this is going to create a weird gray image, and all you're doing here is adjusting the pixels. So the more pixels you add, the more that it's kind of grabbing edges. I like to be right around 4.5. You can do what works for you. So this is just going to sharpen our image up just a little bit, and I'm going to do soft light. So let's go ahead and zoom in kind of over here. And so before, after, just kind of, it takes everything and just crisps it up just a little bit. And again, if you use a much higher number here, we can go back, filter, other, that way you can kind of see. Say even we do like 15, and then we go back again, blend mode, change to soft light. It's a lot more heavy-handed. You know, you can do what works for you. I think this is maybe just again a little bit too much. So I'm going to delete that layer. Command J, filter, other, high pass. I like it to just be subtle. You can even just go 5. It's a nice round number. Soft light. And again, I'll zoom in back here. And before, after. Just kind of crisps up all the edges, gives it a little bit of sharpness. So that's pretty much it. That's what I do with my images. So let's go ahead and group these as a new layer. This is image edit. And this will be a nice way to see kind of where we started and where we ended up. And we can go ahead and, we didn't use any of these, so we can go ahead and delete those. So this is where we started. Kind of just, again, very subtly using the lighten mode, adding in some of this light, adding in a little bit more. This was our second ambient, just to make it so it's not quite so dark. We want moody, but we want some of that detail to still be there. We got rid of that really bright light here again, which I think is a good thing because now we're able to control it later how we want. Adding in a little bit of detail up here on that ceiling. There we go. Adding in now our robes, again using lighten mode, very subtle, adjusting the opacity of the brush, going back and forth as we're adding and subtracting some of that data and information. Adding in the ambient right there of just this light using the lighten mode. We have our color layer that we created to make sure that everything is the color that we want it to be and matching the image. And then now we're just going to use some other color work to fix some of the other color issues within the image. So right here we just created that new color layer and just kind of painted over the robes, that way they match. We used our hue saturation to take some of the yellow, just a little bit, off of the toilet and those bottles. We did a full color full layer just to add in, I think, a little bit more accurate color throughout the image, which was great. And then we moved on to our fixes. There's only 2 in this one, so it was nice and quick and easy. We used our gen fill to get rid of the shadow up here on the ceiling. And then we added a new layer where we darkened up some of those reflections. They were just a little bit too bright. Using our curves, we added a little bit of pop using the lighten preset there. We then used our curves again to create a little bit of contrast using the linear contrast preset. And then we added a little bit of sharpening at the end just to make everything nice and crisp. So that is my luxury hotel bathroom edit. I hope that this video was helpful for you. If you have any questions, please reach out, let us know. Thank you for watching Architecture Photography Tutorials. Have a great day.